So now that you're back, and you're finally really just digging your heels in, you're gonna figure this thing out. You're gonna push. You're gonna really try to understand, comprehend all those things that the church that maybe you didn't understand before, that you disagree with. Now it needs to make sense. This is where you're at now. Tell me more.
I mean, with the things that were going on during COVID, my wife and I, we really dug in. We started reading the front end of the Bible.
Imagine that.
We just at the, because I've read through the New Testament, I don't know how many times, a
Yep.
lot. But I never disciplined myself to sit down and actually read through the front end.
Welcome to TaNaCh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of Testimonial Tuesdays, or Monday Memoirs. They're both files in my YouTube channel. Joining me today is a new friend on our side, Mr. William Burroughs. My friend, welcome. It's a pleasure having you on with me to give your testimonial. I appreciate your willingness to do that. I know I harassed you enough. You finally collapsed. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. So, in typical fashion, what I typically like to do is just, give you a brief introduction. Name, where you're from, and then we'll get into your story, starting, with some family history when you were a kid, and even before that, if you have any. So, just William Burroughs, pleasure. Anything you want to say to the world before we get going?
I just want to say that I'm just a regular guy. I'm nobody special. I'm the father of three. I actually have a couple of stepkids as well, and that I live in the Midwest, kind of a boring place, if you will, in Indiana. Self-employed. I mean, I'm just a regular guy out here, just trying to figure out life like everyone else, and I don't portray to know it all, nor do I, want to come off, arrogant or anything either. I just
Sure.
try to figure out my way and hope to help others.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, so Greg McBride lives in Indiana. I don't know where. I've never been there to see him, but Indiana's not exactly a small place. So, from what I hear,
Not as big as Texas, though.
no kidding, right? That's for sure. Okay, so we'll start off with, if give me a little bit of your background. Well, actually, no. I want to do it like I did last time. What I want to do, just in a real quick blur, I want to go from, were you born into Christianity? In fact, let me just do it this way. I'm going to ask you specific questions, like a bullet point, and you can say yes, no, whatever, with a short, and then we'll go back and do a zoom out and really, really pick it apart. Okay. So, do you have any family heritage that was Christian before you?
Not exactly. Yes, but maybe. I don't know.
Just not real dedicated Christians.
Not at all.
Got it. Okay. And so, how young were you when you were exposed to Christianity?
When I was 16.
16. Now, earlier in our conversation, now see, this may be something I have to edit out. In our conversation, did you mention something when you were like 7 or 8? You heard somebody say something about Jesus?
When I was 7, my parents, my mom and my stepdad, we went to a church once, and I very vaguely remember bits and pieces of it. And I remember being in a Sunday school classroom, and some kids that were about my age was asking me, "Is Jesus your savior?" and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, because I just never was exposed to that. But I knew who God was, though. That was the important thing. My grandmother on my dad's side, my real dad, that is, my biological dad, she always talked about God, but never said a thing about Jesus. So I said, no.
Interesting. Very interesting. Just out of curiosity, I'm gonna assume the answer is no already, but just because this is so new to you, so I'm gonna change my question and do a suggestion. I would recommend, because that's kind of a unique. That's kind of unique story just in general, to have like a grandmother who's religious and never mention Jesus, but always talk about God. There is a possibility you may have Jewish blood in your DNA somewhere from your grandmother or your great grandmother or something like that. So that'd be something to look into.
Absolutely.
So I was 7 years old, and then you had a big 14-ish year gap of nothing, and then somewhere. And how old were you when you started acknowledging that Jesus might be the Messiah?
So that was when I was 16 because my biological dad started going to church here where I'm living at currently here in Indiana. And I was kind of pressured into it, I guess, in a way. Like I didn't want to disappoint my parents. So, it was like, well, yeah, I guess I'll do that. And my heart was not in it. Well, I'm just going to be
Right.
honest with you. My heart was absolutely not in it as a 16-year-old living in the Midwest back in 1997, 96, 97. So for a long time, I kind of got saved, I guess. I just went through it, and then later when 9/11 happened, which for those that are old enough to remember what all went on there was a huge, like, I don't know if you remember or not, William, there was a big, like, everybody kind of came back together. It was kind of
Unifying, yeah.
were very unifying time then. As tragic as those days were, and the details that happened around it, it caused me to like re-examine my life in such a way that I felt like I need to like I had that Christian stuff in the back of my mind that, man, like if I died tomorrow, boy, I'm going to go to hell because I'm definitely not living my life the way that I'm supposed to.
Right.
That caused me to like, because I was working second shift at the time, and I was reading like.
Okay, so hold on. I'm going to save that for the zoom in. So now we got a little teaser. I'm not going to edit this out. We'll leave this alone. Okay, so and you were around 16, 17. Was that right? Okay,
Yep.
and then how far was it when you think you really started getting sort of serious about Christianity, or did you ever get serious about Christianity?
It was 2001 for sure.
2001. So you really made a commitment at that time to just be a dedicated Christian at that point.
Right.
2001. That was a long time ago.
Yes, sir.
That was a long time
And
ago.
I was very heavily in the church from 2001 till about, I don't know, 2010, 11. And for personal reasons that I'm not going to mention on your show, I walked away from it because there were some things that I was upset with God about, and there were some things that I done on my own that I didn't want
Fair
to
enough.
like embarrass people or like put the wrong image out
Sure.
there, I guess. If you know what I mean. I
Yep.
can't think of the.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so that gives me a pretty much an overview of what's going on. So now I want to kind of start picking it apart now. So let's go back to your not necessarily your grandmother, but you said that your mother, she was in church for a little while, and then something happened there. What happened there? And how old were you at this time?
So of course I wasn't around when my mom was younger, but
Sure.
my mom grew up in the Christian church there in Attica, and then I don't know what time she quit going or whatever, but I know that when her and my biological dad got divorced, and then couple years later, her and my stepdad was going to go get married. She wanted to get married in the church there, and when she went to get permission from the pastor at the time, he refused and would not allow that to happen because she was divorced, and apparently they don't believe in that at that particular church, I guess. I don't know if that's with every church or not, but just for that one, they said no. And then ever since then, my mom pretty much has walked away from Christianity completely. Now, she believes in God and stuff. She just, it is what it is in her mind, and that's fine. And honestly, there's a couple times even in my young adult life when I thought I knew something, being a young adult. I was trying to help my mom, and I actually offended my mom a little bit. And
Like what exactly? Just like religious stuff?
like when you're young and you're figuring things out, and here now you have this new information that you think you want to share with the world,
Sure.
that you're like this big and something that's this big of who you are. It just, I don't know. I didn't know everything if I knew what I knew then, now what I knew then, I would have never done that to my mom.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
I'm apologizing to my mom about that quite a few times.
That's okay. That's okay. So so this happened with your mom, and she felt like really hurt by the church, so she left the church, and she left the church permanently. She never returned.
Right.
And so you now you're growing up, 6, 7 years old. We talked about this a few minutes ago. You're in school. You hear the Jesus thing from some other peers of your age, and it's really ironic. My daughter, the reason why we homeschooled our kids, the first main reason was we had them in public schools, and my daughter was about 6 or 7 years old, and she came home and she was all of a sudden in love with Justin. She called him Justin Bieber. She said Justin Bieber is so cute. I'm like, who told you about this? Whatever. She said, oh, all the girls in class. I'm like, these kids are 7 years old. I'm like, that's it. We're done. No more public school. So now they're talking.
It was just my parents, for some reason, took me to church one time. My mom and my stepdad. I don't know why that happened, but that's what it was. I just want to clarify that.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. Okay, good to know. Okay, cool. So now you just live life. You're the typical, not a religious person. You just kind of like going to school, junior high and high school, and but you said around middle of your high school era, around 16, 17 years old. Talk about that a little bit. What happened there?
So my dad, my biological dad, in the town that I live in currently, for whatever reason, because of some things that happened with him at his job back in 91 or 92, he got hurt. There was men that he worked with over here at Fort Vistion, the plant, not too far from where I live, actually, caused him to start looking into church and believing in Jesus and all this stuff. And it was just a regular old Baptist church there here in town. And so he got saved and baptized, and then he influenced me to do the same thing, which I really wasn't wanting to do that. But since I was 16, 17 years old, I, don't want to disappoint my parents.
Yeah, right.
I went through with that, even though it wasn't really in my heart to do so. That makes sense.
Sure. Was there anything that textual wise that was causing you to be kind of skeptical, or were you just wanted to be you at that time? You hadn't really matured to the point of making that kind of decision.
William, I was like every other teenager that wanted to do what I wanted to do.
Right. Cool. Okay, so now moving into the next stage of this development. How old were you when you really said, you know what, maybe Dad's right? Let's move on with that.
Okay, so 9/11 happened. At this point, my daughter was just a few months old. Actually, she was a little over a year and a half old. She had two brothers that were half brothers. So I was married at the time and working second shift job, just regular guy, of course, like I said on the onset of this.
Sure.
With all that happened during that time and the unification of people coming together, there was just this drawl of like, I need to get my life together because, I mean, who knows what day or hour we got left or what moment we have left, right? Like nobody knows that. That's
right.
Doesn't where you come from. That's for anybody. And like the old thoughts and memories of going to church, what little bit I did when I was 16, 17 years old, kind of came back to me, and it was like, holy crap, like, I probably need to be really getting serious about this. And here I am raising these kids, and yet I'm just as crazy as the world is, and that's not a very good influence. So I need to be a better influence to my children. So that's when I really got serious about things and started asking some questions and figuring some things out in terms of, hey, what's this Christianity thing all about? I need to rededicate my life, so to speak, because that's what people do typically when they backslide in Christianity. So that's what I did. And for 10 years, roughly, I was very much actively part of the Pentecostal church that I was in at the time. I didn't necessarily do all the stuff that those people did because a lot of it didn't make sense to me. And of course, I didn't want to be disrespectful to people or to God or anything like that. Or
sure.
Whatever, I just try to mind my P's and Q's on stuff. But I played music. I played the guitar and learned to play guitar by myself.
Nice.
Self-taught on that. And I did that for 10 years. And then, like I said earlier, I left the church for other reasons outside of that, and I was upset with God on some things. And
During your 10 years there, would you say that block of time in your life, did you take your studies seriously, or did you really go in and try to understand and try to comprehend the New Testament?
as a matter of fact, or as it turns out, like Tovia says, I I was learning and trying to become basically I was going to become a minister.
Nice.
Because I felt like that was my calling.
Wow. Very
You
nice.
how that all works. You understand that.
Absolutely.
I felt like that was what I was supposed to do, and I was kind of working towards it. I even preached a couple times there at that particular church because it was a small little church. It wasn't very big, and it was the kind of atmosphere that it wasn't driven by money or anything necessarily. It was just, people that genuinely wanted to do God's will.
Yeah, just kind of freestyle, I guess you could say.
But they also had their, viewpoints on things and stuff like that. And I don't, and I just want to make sure people understand that I don't have a negative viewpoint on any of the people that's ever influenced me in my life.
That's
at all.
good. That's good.
Because I think, with the, like, how I want to say, like the cognitive dissonance that we have, it's hard for people to change. It's difficult unless you absolutely, by all means, have a drive inside of you like no other to say, look, I'm willing to look at anything and I don't care what it does to my life.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the attitude you have to come into all this, honestly.
Right. Well, most people, they have the Jesus glasses on and they absolutely refuse, and they know that they will refuse. In fact, I did that for a long time. I would always, especially when I was going through struggles, I was like, God, just show me your will. So I'll do anything. The only thing I'll never do is I'll never forsake Jesus, ever, ever, ever. And that's the code that I lived by, which is why it took me so long to actually open my eyes, because it wasn't until I stopped praying that way and started saying, God, I don't care what this means, even if it means forsaking Jesus, show me the truth. And I started studying, and boom, that's what happened. So you've got this. So what was the big? Because you were just on a real steady roll for 10 years. What changed all that? What changed that momentum you had?
You really want to know?
Yeah, say it.
Oh, gosh. So let's just say, well, I'll just say it. I had an affair.
Okay.
And it wasn't something that I planned to do at all. It was just something I got caught up in with the personal things that were going on in my life at the time. And it was very difficult because once you're in the thick of that situation like that, and I'm sure there may be people in your audience that can relate to this, I guess.
Sure.
About themselves, is that that you're doing wrong, but yet you're justifying ways to continue to do it. And yet, once you realize how bad a situation that you're in with that and how deep you are, it's almost like you don't know what to do and you don't know where to go. And I'm not promoting any of this.
Sure, of course.
I'm not trying to justify anything either, and I don't want that to come across as to who I am.
Sure. So was it the guilt? I'm sorry. Repeat that last sentence, please.
I was just in a bad place in my life at the time.
Gotcha.
Just a lot.
And then, so the guilt from that pretty much separated you from the church.
Absolutely did. I mean, because for one, they'd never forgive anybody like that. And two, like, it doesn't matter what church you go to. It doesn't matter who you are. Once you have that kind of label on you,
mm-hmm.
people don't give you any credibility at all.
Yeah.
You're a black sheep. But thankfully, the woman I'm married to now, I've explained things to her. I told her what happened, and and I said that very early on in our relationship, and she's been very understanding, and she understands a little bit of that because, she saw where that temptation could have been at for herself.
Yeah, right.
Previous marriage and how that was at the time for her. So, that helped for me at least. But I went for about 10 years of like really hating on myself and knowing that I did wrong. And I just stayed away from all that because, one, I didn't feel like I was worthy. Two, like, who am I to tell anybody anything? Because look at all this stuff that I just did.
Mm-hmm. Right. So now you got you had that connection and then the disconnection, and then now just fairly recently you've reconnected again, but now you're on the other side of the fence. You're like, Christianity? What? No way. How did that happen?
All right. So in 2020 during COVID, we were all handcuffed and locked up to not be able to do nothing. I felt again like, and of course this comes more from the Christianity side of things, is I felt this drawing like I need to figure this out. Like I need to quit messing around and figure out what does God really want from me, and what does He want as far as what does He want from me and my wife, and what to do with that with our family, right? So we got back into going to church again, which there's a church about a mile and a half to the south of my house here out in the country. They're a non-denominational church. Nothing crazy, just laid back people, good folks, nothing crazy. And I just started attending there and got in with some people pretty decently. Didn't completely feel like I was like, I don't know, William. I guess it's kind of like you feel like you're not part of the club. You ever felt that way before?
Yeah, you just felt like you're not really accepted by everybody else. You're like an outsider.
And the thing is, what's funny about this, and I just want to just touch on this for just a moment because I think other people might understand this, is that for the majority of my life, pretty much all of it, like I've always felt this disconnect with people. Like either people like me or they absolutely hate me. And sometimes I feel like I don't do anything to deserve that. So I think in some ways, based on the stuff that I've studied up to this point, that's what makes me wonder, is there a part of me that's Jewish that just people have this natural hate against, you know what I mean? Like the stuff that talks about.
Yep.
And Michael Skobac and them guys talk about, you know what I mean? So anyways, let me get back on track.
So now that you're back, and you're finally really just digging your heels in, you're gonna figure this thing out. You're gonna push. You're gonna really try to understand, comprehend all those things that the church that you didn't understand before, that you disagree with. Now it needs to make sense, and this is where you're at now. Tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, with the things that were going on during COVID, my wife and I, we really dug in. We started reading the front end of the Bible.
Imagine that.
Just at the, because I've read through the New Testament, I don't know how many times, a lot. But I never disciplined myself to sit down and actually read through the front end, William. I mean, it's just like, who would have thunk it, right? Like,
that's right. That's funny.
If you enjoy this channel and the content, and it has changed your life, or perhaps the life of a loved one or a close friend, would you please consider supporting this work? You can click this link and it'll take you directly to my website with the donate button. Or there's a Patreon link and a mailing address for snail mail if you would prefer. If you do donate, please do me a favor and leave me a phone number where I can contact you and thank you properly. I hope you all have a wonderful 2025. Shalom.
To sit down and actually read through the front end, William. I mean, it's just like, who would have thunk it, right? Like,
that's right. That's funny.
Kind of not very. That's counterproductive. So me and my wife religiously, I don't know, for weeks and days on end, we spent every night at our kitchen table reading. We went through the Torah. I know at least once that first year in 22, because we were still dealing with the Christianity stuff during even all this time for a couple of years. And really, just there's so much that went on. I don't know if I want to say all this stuff.
Sure.
I don't want to put a negative connotation on your channel or anybody else. And I don't want to change anything with the way people view me. So, we did go through the messianic thing. As a matter of fact, William, we figured that out, I don't know, last year, that, hey, there's something to this messianic Christianity that we need to figure out, right? And, we started listening to different people in those groups. And of course, talking about, what instead of saying Jesus' name, you say it the other way.
Yeshua, yeah.
Yeshua, exactly, sorry.
Right. No, you're fine.
And saying, we're supposed to say God's name because the Bible says you're supposed to not, make it, you're not supposed to, not use his name or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that was the thought process, I guess. So anyways, we were reading through the front end of the Bible, and you know what? God kept saying, hey, look, you got to keep my commandments, my statutes, keep my Sabbath. Like he makes that so important throughout all of it. And he keeps saying it over and over and over again. Now, where a lot of Christians may say, well, wait a minute. That's for the Jews. That's not for you because you're a Christian and Jesus took all that away and made all this stuff new. Well, okay, but Jesus himself said a lot of other things that were contrary to what you're trying to push because that's all Paulinism. Sorry.
You're fine, yeah.
That's where that came from for us was we started to sniff out that Paul was not who he says he's supposed to be. And then when you really start digging into like the history of Christianity, where all that comes from, and it's like, holy crap, like there was a bunch of guys back in the 300s, started with Council of Nicaea and Council Laodicea, and then all these different councils throughout the years that pretty much shaped and molded what you see today as Christianity. And something's not right here. Something's off. Well, then, some point last year, I started to see snippets of Tovia Singer's videos from a guy by the name of Doug Del Tondo. He runs a YouTube channel called Jesus Words Only, and I'll give him credit where credit's due because he's an excellent person that does a lot of research. He really looks into a lot of things, and he actually helped me get to this point.
Did you say he was a lawyer?
No, he's a lawyer.
So he understands the need for research. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I guess he was he knows the Greek language really well. Like he actually has a degree for it. I don't know.
Nice.
Check it out. Like anybody that's interested. But so that was kind of the pathways was I finally got tired of, for myself, not lacking in the area of wanting to know what God wants me to do. That's in a nutshell sums it all up.
Okay, sure.
Serious, like I was, and I'm not saying that I'm the staple of all this or the icon, if you will.
Right.
But serious enough that you're like, I don't care what it does to my life. I don't care. Like, I don't care. I just want to know, because I think that's really what God wants from us.
Sure.
He wants us to be serious about this. And he wants us to, like, look, you're married to me.
Mm-hmm.
And if, like, are not willing to be with me, then fine, don't be with me.
Right.
But don't be with me. And that's honestly where I felt like during a lot of my adult life, there was times where I was really serious, but I really wasn't following the right God.
Sure. So you were Christian, and then all of a sudden on this last spill after COVID, you kind of changed your focus and direction to go into the Messianic area. So how long were you in the Messianic thing before you saw the what was this, Doug Del Tondo video where he was criticizing Rabbi Singer? When was that? You said about a year ago or so?
Well, so the Messianic thing, I wasn't in that long enough, not to like as long as you was there, William. I just saw that there was something that they were doing different, and they were trying to get more back to the like roots of where things were, if that makes sense.
Yep, right.
Mainstream Christianity, hey, let's get back to what this was intended for. So I wasn't in that very long, but when I started listening to Doug's stuff, I listened to quite a bit of his videos. He's got a couple thousand out there, and I've probably listened to about 40%
Wow.
of it. So, because he was talking about how Paul is not legit, and that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
In that video, and this is what's funny about all this, William. I don't go looking for this stuff, okay? This stuff has found me because I don't know why. It's a mystery, I guess. I don't call it mystery, but that's the only way I know to put it. So, I found Doug's video by accident, and then I watched a bunch of his stuff. And then towards the end of watching some of his things, I saw clips of where he was using Tovia's videos, like little snippets, to prove his point about Paul. But then, of course, he'd give the disclaimer after the fact, hey, look, don't be careful listening to this guy. He don't believe in Jesus. That's not what we do here. Fine. Well, I went and checked out Tovia on my own, and this was probably in March of 2024. And I was scared to death because what are we taught in Christianity, William?
Yep.
Who you listen to, because they might change your mind, or they might have the devil in them or something. Whatever mysticism that they want to spew on you.
Yep.
It disappoints me that I fell for that for so long. But anyways, neither here nor there. So I kind of took a break on that. And then I found your video. Me and my wife did. We sat down. Actually, I watched yours for just a short period of time, probably a week prior to that in July. And then we were doing Sabbath, me and my wife was, where we try not to work or do anything on Saturday. We try to focus our energy on God and read and study and things like that. That's what we were doing prior to July 27th of 2024. So we watched your 3-hour video, which took a minute, and we went through everything that was going on. And I'm like looking at her and she's looking at me, and it's like, I think we found the end of the path here, because we've been searching for truth for the last 4 years. We figured out that the world's pretty much fake. I'm just going to put it out there like that. People can look into that however they want.
Sure.
Religions and different things like that, like a lot of that's man-made, unfortunately, is what we figured out. And then we get to, well, Judaism, why didn't we ever think of that? Oh, well, we just didn't. I don't know why. And when we got to Judaism, it's like, hey, like these people ain't trying to like convert people. They're not trying to go out here and get people. It's like kind of up to you if you want to be part of the covenant of God. Just as he says in Exodus and Numbers and Deuteronomy, he puts out there openly that if you want to be part of the covenant, you can. You just got to follow my commandments, statutes, and keep my Sabbath. That's it. And he even says that in Isaiah 56, 1 through 8. He brings that up openly that the stranger and the, whoever's not a part of Israel can very much be a part of his holy mountain one day. So.
And that's what led you out of the Messianic movement into where you are now.
When I finally got brave enough to say, okay, I made this claim to my kids, I made this claim to other people, that I'm going to search for the truth no matter where it takes me. And guess what? Here we are, William. I've listened to, I'm not kidding you, I've probably listened to about 30 or 40% of your videos. I've listened to Tovia's stuff, which is kind of a mixed match between a lot of the stuff he's done on your show.
Sure.
A lot of Michael Skobac stuff and some other rabbis throughout. And it makes sense, like what Judaism is teaching people. And people need to just take a break for a minute and just say, okay, what's really going on is that God put it out there way back here, and then somewhere along the lines, mankind got a hold of it and changed it. Well, why do we care what mankind says? Why not go back here to what God says and take his word for it? If he's the same all the way through, why the disconnect? And I've had those questions, William. Man, I had these questions like 20 years ago. I was so afraid to question the narrative that I might lose my salvation or whatever. It's not that people said that directly. It was a subtle thing. So I think when people really get serious and say, look, I don't care what other people think. I don't care what other people say. And go, what does God say? What's God's opinion? Right?
Yep. That's right.
What's God's opinion? Well, here it is in the book. And
how old are your kids now?
So my oldest daughter's 25.
Okay.
And
How's she handling this?
uh, she she's neutral.
Okay. Is she a Christian or is she kind of still like not really involved?
She, I don't know, 50-50, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, she's Christian, quote unquote, but
Yeah. Yeah.
she'll go to church.
Gotcha. And your other ones?
My oldest son, he's 22, going to be 23 this year. He is very much a Christian. He's going to the church that we were going to,
Wow.
which means, like he wasn't going that way at all when he was a teenager. And then he got with some guys while doing weightlifting and some other things. And, they really encouraged him, hey, you need to turn your life around, which is great, great for a parent. And, and I'm not mad at him for being over there at all right now. I'm not. And I want to make that very clear.
Sure.
If that's what he's got to go through to say, okay, I see what dad went through, and now I study this stuff for myself, and then it's like, oh, light comes on and it figures out, great, do that.
Right.
Is
he the same? Is he sharing the same response with you? Is he okay with where you're at?
No, honestly not. We get along. We just don't talk about God, or we decided not to.
That's good. That's good.
When I first made my mind up that Judaism was the way to go, there was some personal things going on between me and him and some guys that were going to that church at the time, that me and him had it out one night. And of course I said some things I probably shouldn't have, because I'm just a dad.
Sure.
I'm not some fake human being, and there was concerns that I had because they were saying some things about me, and I never said nothing negative about nobody.
That's typically how it goes in my experiences.
They obviously knew that me and my wife was doing things differently, that we're trying to figure out what the truth is, and some people didn't like that. And of course now, my son's going there, and they're teaching him and telling him things, I'm sure, hey, be careful of your dad, be careful of what he's saying. Maybe, I don't know. That's the thing. That's the only thing I can figure based upon how he responds to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, right.
I'm not a dumb person. I can kind of put two and two together. So.
Sure. Well, at least I'm glad to hear that you and your son are being cordial, and that's really a good thing, because so many scenarios where it causes complete division to where they just can't be around each other, and that's so hard, So for him to be mature enough to say, hey, we can still love each other and spend family time together. Let's just keep religion and politics aside. That's the way to go.
Because what I've learned from you and Tovia, Federow, Rabbi Federow, all the people that you have on your channel, I've learned a lot from you guys. I really have, and credit to those that's put the time in.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, like you brought up a few weeks ago in one of your videos, I think with Tovia, is that you felt like you had to minister to people or witness to people being a Ben Noahide like we are. And then you figured out, oh, well, I really don't need to do that, do I?
Right.
And I came to that assumption a few months ago myself through some of the things that Tovia was saying, is like, look, you don't need to go there if it's going to cause problems, because the core fundamentals of Judaism is to preserve life and to keep peace and things like that. And if I'm out here trying to tell people, hey, this is what you should be doing, and it's causing division and strife and problems, that's totally disenfranchising what Judaism is all about. So I don't want to misrepresent that, nor misrepresent myself. So I don't get worried about trying to go out here and evangelize people to Judaism.
Cool. Nice.
That's not put on us to do. If nothing else, the Jewish people, the true Jewish people, the small remnant that's left in the world in this day, time, and age, they're to be the light. Right. And then help reflect that light by being Noahides and following the Noahide laws, and being as we can to do what we're supposed to do for
sure.
God.
And that's what the whole essence of being a light is. It's not going door knocking. It's just when you're living yourself, you have your light. You're not shadowing it so no one can see it. You're being who you are, and when people see what you're doing and they ask questions, then that's the time to tell them. but don't go knocking on their door trying to give them unwanted information. I hate that. That's horrible. Yeah, right on. Well, cool, man. Well, I'll tell you what. Thank you for taking us down this journey, man. That you've had that's very unique for sure. I wish you all the best and your wife, and prayers for your son and your daughter that they would follow you on this journey at some point. That'd be
I
great.
do have 3 more kids if you want to hear about them.
Oh, really? Yes. Wow, you've been a busy man. Definitely, tell us about it.
So my youngest son from my first marriage, he's 19, and he's trying to decide between being Christian or going Judaism. Okay, so that's where he's at. He act like if I talk to him about stuff, he'll actually sit down and listen to me.
Oh, nice.
So it's kind of nice. And then my wife's 2 boys, which they're my stepsons. So his dad and his wife, we all 4 get along really well. Like we get well enough that they come over here on Friday nights or maybe Saturday nights sometimes, and they spend the night at our house. We play cards, and we all hang out together as a group, so that he gets to see his boys and hang out with them and do things with them. And then we kind of, converse together about things going on with what we either have studied recently or a video we watched on your channel, for example. We may talk about that or what have you, because it's been the 4 of us figuring out this whole truth, if you will, the last 4 years, going on 5 now. So I know it's a weird dynamic. I'm sure people are like, what do you mean you're hanging out with your wife's ex-husband and you guys get along? Like, that's so odd. And it is odd. And
Yeah.
I never had that growing up, and I wish that, my dad and my stepdad maybe could have got along better.
Sure. Right. It's keeping the peace is important. It really is. I know with my wife, we've been married now 25 years, been together 25 years, married 23. She made a really great effort to remain friends, and not close friends, but just friends, friendly with my first wife, because of my oldest son, and there was nothing wrong with that. Can it go weird because you have private conversations with them that you don't know what they're talking about? Yeah, but that's a different point altogether. But it is a little odd. It's an odd feeling, but at the same time, it can be very beneficial for everyone. So.
So I mean, that's what's going on with me, and I've gotten all of Tovia's literature, that the 2-volume set. We've read through quite a bit of that, and then I got both of Rabbi Federow's books that he put out there, and I've read through the first one so far about
Nice.
why Jews don't believe in Jesus. I'm telling you, that is, if anybody out there is listening, read that book and read it, okay, and then have a Bible or 2 laying next to you, and just take those claims and study them out for yourself. I mean, yeah, maybe you can't read the original Hebrew, which, by the way, I think that's important. I know my wife's trying to learn right now. She's slowly, and not to make an excuse of myself. I got so much going on trying to run my own business and deal with everybody that I don't have the desire to pick that up and digest learning.
Right. Understandable. Yeah, you don't have enough time on your hands to begin with. But you've learned enough. So one final question. So in your journey, it'll start off with a statement. In your journey of a Christian, you, like all along, you were like, okay, this is good. Whoa, what was that? Nah, just forget it. And everything was like good, bad, or like not sure, like why does that not make sense? And this went up and down the whole time you're a Christian. Whenever you switched over and said, Judaism is the truth that you finally found out, how much of that up and down did you go through on that part of the journey till now?
Night and day difference.
It's like, for me, it was like none. I thought I would be doing the same thing. But from the moment I pulled that trigger on walking this walk, and the more I learned, I'm like, I still to this day haven't found a single thing yet that has not been explained. It's like it's like a straight, perfect line of study. It's like nothing to go back and double, because it's like, it makes sense. That makes sense. 2 + 2 is 4. Okay, well, they said 2 + 2 is 3. Or they say, was it 1 × 1 × 1? that Trinity stuff. So, yeah, okay, good. That's what I want to know. Okay, well, very good. Well, Mr. Burroughs, you have been a real delight, and I know that this testimony is going to help a lot of people. And prayers for you and your family that y'all would just continue to grow close together. And you and I will catch up again later.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, and thank you all for your time and for watching, and we'll catch you guys on the flip side. Take care, everybody. Shalom.
If you enjoy this channel and the content, and it has changed your life, or perhaps the life of a loved one or a close friend, would you please consider supporting this work? You can click this link and it'll take you directly to my website with the donate button. Or there's a Patreon link and a mailing address for snail mail if you would prefer. If you do donate, please do me a favor and leave me a phone number where I can contact you and thank you properly. I hope you all have a wonderful 2025. Shalom.